My name is Ratib. I'm the client success manager at a recruitment company called Socially Responsible Recruitment. Our business was founded after our founder and CEO, Chris Sheard, read a book called People Over Profit by Del Partridge. He was always looking to start a business or essentially enhance his career or do something with his career. But he couldn't quite figure out his why, and he didn't even really know that he was looking for a why. But once he found out what he wanted to do and why he wanted to do it, he then ended up, I guess, following his heart and starting socially responsible recruitment. And we're almost 5 years old now since our founding. And in those 5 years, we now have 60 people. We've donated, I think, over £160,000 to charity. So a percentage of our profits goes to charity. And by and large, we have a huge and a tremendous focus on our people, right? We really look after our people. Now, if you look back at all that, we didn't really talk about recruitment or why we're special at recruitment. It was just literally why we wanted to run as a business. So essentially, trying to link that to the theme of knowing your why within freelancing and I guess your careers in general. Now, I'm not a psychologist, but I'll be speaking off the back of my own experience and I guess the journeys and the paths that I took. And I've just remembered, just before I go into it, I've got my little one running around the house causing chaos. So if she bumps into the room, like, please forgive me. I might have to pull her out. But yeah, so I'm going to share my screen if that's okay. It's a really fairly basic presentation that I've put together, but hopefully if I work out how to do this, there you go. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
If I can somehow make it better, there you go.
Perfect.
Yeah, amazing. So knowing your why. So thank you so much for all of you for joining. So just to give you a background about my story. So like in school, I was an okay student. I kind of somehow made my way through my GCSEs. I didn't do particularly well. I didn't do particularly poorly. I just kind of averaged through. I then went to sixth form. Again, didn't know what I wanted to do, how I wanted it, just no idea. I ended up at 3 different colleges and 6 forms, not because I was, I don't have any bad behavioural issues or anything like that, but just genuinely just didn't feel any kind of passion for the subjects that I studied. I then went to university, did a degree that I wasn't interested in, and was unemployed for 11 months. Random jobs here and there, and eventually I fell into recruitment, as most recruiters will tell you. It was a really random way to apply for a job. I was working as a waiter at my dad's restaurant, and a recruiter came in, and I was asking for a job because I knew the job, but he then suggested, actually, would you consider a career in recruitment? I said yes, didn't know what it was, and I just went into it. And then in my first year, I failed. I didn't do very well. And don't get me wrong, like, the recruitment industry has got some really interesting characters. Tough industry. It's very cutthroat. But at the same time, like, a lot of it's down to yourself as well, and how much you want it and why you want it. So I went into recruitment for the reasons of, gets me into an office job 9 to 5, and it can make me some money, and hopefully that's all we want, right? That's the dream. After a year, 12 months, or almost 11 to 12 months, I wouldn't say I was sacked, but certainly, like, given an ultimatum, and I just wasn't happy to continue in that environment. I then went to another recruitment agency, same thing again, another 12 months, actually a much better company this time. So I couldn't really put the blame on somebody else. And I think as you grow older, you kind of realize different ways of thinking. But certainly for me, towards the end of it, it made me question whether or not I was good at recruitment, right? I then joined another company, slightly different role, a company called PeopleSource, and I did okay, not too bad, pretty steady. It was a better environment to work in, I could definitely say that. But it came to a point where I found myself struggling again. And then I started questioning my, I guess, my ability, whether I was good enough. You know, lots of self-esteem issues. And I'm sure like everyone in their careers, like will face this. Like careers aren't easy. They're down, they're up, they're left, they're right, they're whatever they are. But something changed for me at the time, and I didn't realize it kind of clicked. And what had happened was that I had gotten engaged, right, to the poor lady that I'm still married to 7 years later. And I realized, well, a bit later on, that my motivations had changed, right? So before, it was more along the lines of wanting to recruit for the sake of recruiting, working for the sake of working. So in this particular case, relating back to the topic, freelancing, it would be freelancing for the sake of freelancing, right? But for me, my motivation changed. And what happened was that there was then a desire to achieve a certain something in my circumstances. So before it was just everyone else is doing it, that's why I'm going into it. But now I needed to earn money quickly and do a good job as well. So my why changed. And it got me thinking. It got me thinking hard about what we do on a day-to-day basis. What are we actually passionate about? Like, why are we doing what are we doing? Good news is I managed to do okay, and then I paid for the wedding, which was really expensive, and I wouldn't recommend it. But yeah, all in all, there was like a happily ever after. But it really made me think about motivation theory. And when I'm speaking to candidates and contractors and freelancers who are looking to come into the industry, I started looking at their CVs, right? And so the ones that did particularly well had a deep passion for what they were actually doing, but they didn't become freelancers for the sake of freelancing. Does that make sense? Right? So the whole kind of notion of knowing your why, when I'm speaking to candidates and contractors, we've obviously got Jazz here, who will probably explain a little bit more about his role, what he does here, but he's Jazz, what's your role?
So I guess my freelancing has been sort of limited company contracting based. It's the range from consultancy out, basically.
Yeah, awesome. And what do you do on a day-to-day basis?
So actually, right now, full disclosure, I'm actually in a perm job through sort of various life decisions I've made, but I'm still doing freelancing sort of on the side, small projects, etc.
Yeah.
So kind of what I do, it's everything. It's a one-person company, so everything from director responsibilities all the way down to actually at the coalface doing the work. It's development work, essentially.
Development work. Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so if Jazz was a candidate I'd be speaking to, I'd ask Jazz about development. What is it about development that you like? Tell me about your successful projects. What is it that you enjoy on a day-to-day basis? For a lot of contractors and freelancers who I've worked with that are just there for the money, which is good in freelancing, it is good, and then there's come risk as well with the money. I found by and large, those who are just obsessed by money have really struggled to keep consistency in their careers. But it's the ones that have really become specialists in the area of work that they do, their expertise, are the ones who have done particularly well in freelancing. And that's because perhaps quite early on in their careers, they've identified what it is that makes them tick and what it is that they want to do on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so just kind of moving on from that, I'm not sure if anybody's come across something called the Golden Circle. So there's a chap called Simon Sinek, who I absolutely adore, and sometimes pronounced Sinek. He is a kind of a motivational guru, I guess you could say, but he's developed something called the Golden Circle. Okay, so if we look at my screen, sorry Helen. No, it's fine. So if you look at the screen, so golden circle. So for me, when I first started, if you can see my mouse or the arrow, the pointer, I started with my what, like what did I want to do, which is recruitment. Then I looked at how I wanted to do it. I didn't really consider my why. And for me, that's why I failed, right? I didn't do particularly well in my roles. What we should really be doing in our careers, whether you are freelancing or perm, but certainly in freelancing, is finding out why. Like, why is it that you want to go freelancing? Okay. So when I talk to my teams as well, like whenever they work with us, we always remind each other of our whys. So if you are looking to go freelancing, so for every single person, every single one of you that's in this room, ask yourself, why is it that you want to go freelancing? What are your motivations? Is it money, right? If it is money, look deeper. Why is it that you need that money? Right? What is it that you're trying to achieve from that money? So with my team or for contractors, I try to build a relationship with them and I try to find out what their objectives are. Some of the contractors, the freelancers will tell you, Ratib, do you know what? I just deeply enjoy what it is I do. Like if I'm working with DevOps engineers, they say, I just love DevOps. I love building Kubernetes clusters from scratch. Like that's super important to me. I just want to create a fantastic environment for people to benefit from. Brilliant. Okay, so that's their why. And that is what will set them apart from other DevOps engineers. If we're looking at anybody looking to go into UX design, for example, something I really love and admire, why do you want to go into UX design? What is it about UX design that appeals to you? What do you want to achieve from it? How are you distinguishing yourself from others by really realizing your why? So if it's a case of, I want to build beautiful apps that everyone enjoys using, that will be the one thing that distinguishes you from other UX designers. Right? If we look at it from just a money perspective, what is it about the money that motivates you? Because in truth, money is a means, it's not an end. And I've spoken to career contractors who at first, as a Ratib, I used to chase the money in the beginning, but actually things changed for me circumstantially and I realized actually I just needed to focus on a specialism, something that I was deeply passionate about. And that's when things changed for them. That's when, instead of starting off with the what, which was the money, it was the why they wanted to earn it in the first place. Okay, so to give you a really simple example, this one contractor who we'd worked with was asking for an increase on a very good rate of pay that that they had. And I had a long-standing relationship with the individual, so I just asked, like, what's the purpose for this? Like, it's justifiable if we can get a good case study together for the, for the client, then I can make these changes. And he was quite candid. He said, Ratib, to be honest, I have to pay for full-time care for someone, and that for me is my motivation. That's why I need the money, and this is what pushes me through on a day-to-day basis. Okay. So it's really important for all of you who are on this call today, super important that you study the golden circle, look up a chap with Simon Sinek and really get to know your why. So if you are looking to set up because maybe you want the flexibility, great, but why do you want the flexibility? How will it impact your life? What are the benefits that will have? Because careers are tough. Like jobs, you'll have some days where you think, I'm going into work. But if you really can identify with your motivation, like Kim, for example, super inspiring. I hope Kim shares, their story at some point, because, yeah, like how codebar was set up was absolutely incredible. But that's because the why was identified, the want and desire to help people. So figure out your why, then how you're going to achieve it, and then what are you going to do with it. Okay. So I'm just going to wrap up very quickly. So if you are deep diving, you can use something called the six-step formula. And when I worked as a talent acquisition manager for a tech company in Bristol, whenever we used to do like careers workshops and stuff like that, this is what we followed, and it worked. pretty well for all of our roles. So following on the topic of questions, the what do I wish to do? What is my understanding of the role? What impact will it have on my lifestyle? So if you are freelancing, why and what? Here's your whys. Why do I wish to move into this position? Why is this important to me? Why would this be beneficial to me? And make sure you write it down. Don't just think of it. Write it down, evaluate, sleep on it. You know, it's a big decision for yourselves. Who can I speak to? So at this event, this is a good start, I'd say. In order to get a better understanding of the role, who can be a good role model to follow? So who have you seen in your network, anybody that you can reach out to, they think actually it would be great if I could get some advice from this person, this individual? Where's? So where am I in my present role? Where would I like to be in a set amount of time? How's? How am I going to implement my newfound knowledge? So now that you know what you want to do, how are you going to implement it? How can I position myself for the role that I want to get into? Like, how can I improve myself? How can I ensure that I'm fulfilling my present responsibilities whilst thinking of a future role? And your when. When can I start and when are my deadlines? Now, this for me is like super important. And actually, King's example of setting up a pension is actually really timely. So if Kim set herself a deadline to get the pension sorted, perhaps within a month she would have done, do you know what, I need to get this done by the end of the month, right? And it wouldn't have taken over 2 years to get it done. And I don't get paid by Penfold, I'm just putting out there, but I'm just letting you know. So if you do want to become a freelancer, don't just kind of think about it, give yourself a deadline. So I want to become a freelancer by July 2023. Okay, brilliant, work backwards. So for me to become a freelancer by then, what do I need to do, right? Just final recommendations from myself before I wrap up, because I know it's got a bit of info to take on. Recruiters can be your worst enemies. They can also be your best friends. They are your access to loads of roles, certainly earlier on in your career. Once you become really experienced, people will probably reach out to you anyway. But I would highly recommend finding some good recruitment agencies, registering yourself as much as you can, introducing yourself and your skills, and really getting to know your network. Okay. So there's an old saying, one of my mentors told me once, it's not just who you know or what you know, it's who knows you. So get yourself out there, make yourself a LinkedIn profile, speak to as many recruiters as you can, and build your network of recruiters for the area that you want to specialize in. So yeah, take a screenshot if you need to, and I'll just wrap up finally going back to the golden circle, right? So instead of starting off as what, so I want to become a freelancer, flip it around. I want to make incredible applications that serve a purpose for the community, that will help people with their day-to-day lives. With the how, I'm going to achieve this by developing in this area or this skill, or I want to become a developer by July of next year, right? And then the what, it kind of happens, it kind of goes hand in hand. We've already discussed it. Because you want to build applications, you know what you want to be at the end of it, like a freelancing developer. So that is the golden circle, and that is knowing your why. Okay, so I hope that's been really helpful. Appreciate it might have been slightly a lot to take on board, but I promise all of you, like as soon as you can figure out your why, it will absolutely accelerate your career. Like don't delay it, like put a deadline on it. By the end of the week, I'm going to find out why I want to become what I want to become. And then I'm going to figure out how I'm going to get there. Got it? So that's me done. Knowing your why. I hope that's been helpful. Any questions, please reach out. I am on LinkedIn. So yeah, like reach out to me, connect with me, and I'll support you where I can. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think it links really nicely actually to the next talk, because the next talk was my why, which is Nicola's talk of nomadic freelancing, work from anywhere. That was my why of why I wanted to freelance. And so, yeah, it actually links really well. Does anyone have any questions for Ratib before we open the floor to Nicola? Eddie has said, don't forget about your GitHub profile. Yeah, really, really useful.
I sadly don't have a GitHub profile. The next time. Thank you.
Are you accepting questions via audio?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ratib. That was, you know, when you hear these things and then you're like, and then you hear it again and it kind of just makes a bit more sense as to, I've heard the term, oh, work backwards. And sometimes I'm like, how can you work backwards? But how you've put it, it makes a lot of sense. You starting with your why, then progresses you to other stages. So thank you for going through that. I wanted to ask, I'm new on the coding setup, and I'm trying to get into software development so I can eventually go into DevSecOps. That's where I've kind of figured out my niche could be. What would your advice be for somebody who is new and trying to get networking and also work opportunities towards that sector?
Cool. Really good question. Thank you so much for sticking with me through the talk, and really appreciate the feedback as well. It's certainly nice to hear. Great question. You're definitely in the right place. There is going to be a talk about personal brand later on, which will probably cover a lot of the question that you've asked there. For somebody starting off, then going back to what I was saying, like, ask yourself why it is that you want to become a developer in the first place. Right? So you have to identify like what it is specifically that makes you passionate about development. Like, how have you identified that? That's something I would deeply reflect on. Like, I've come to like 10 years, almost 11 years in recruitment, and it's taken me a long time to realize why I do it in the first place. And I wish I did that reflection a lot earlier. I mean, life experience kind of pushes you into that direction as well. But if someone sat me down and said, Ratib, I need your why, that would have helped me big time, right? So those times where it does become tough, and it will, and as long as you know your kind of long-term objective, it will get you through that. That's probably like really key for you. Secondly, networking. So going back to the point of not just who you know and what you know, it's who knows you. So how many recruiters do you know? How many businesses have you, workshops have you attended? Like, there's loads of meetup groups that you could attend where you can network with individuals. I know there are some companies, like there's one particular client that I work with, and I can give you their details later on, who have an academy. And they particularly are interested in underrepresented communities joining. So if women, for example, are looking to get into tech, then they have facilities for that. So yeah, like please reach out to me, on LinkedIn. We're more than happy to kind of put you in touch with them for
Yes,
that.
please.
So all right. So I hope that answers your question. Personal brand is the big one, so I'll leave that for the other guest speaker to cover. I think that's probably the big one here, certainly for developers. Like, online presence is huge. You are, as a freelancer, a business, and it's all about window dressing. Like, how am I presenting all of my qualities to the market? So yeah, I hope that answers your question there, Gio.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Pointed out some key areas, but I will reach out to you afterwards. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.